Continuing the subject of previous daf, which is the discussion over the 3-month period. We explained in the past several days that the rabbis rule, the moment there is a separation, no matter what, in a general term, she have to have a 3-month period. Some scenarios, if a couple divorced, so there is a concern that maybe she's pregnant from the previous husband. Therefore, the rabbis followed the general concept in the Torah, the rules that she cannot get married earlier than 3 months. The same applies to widows. They have to wait 3 months. The same applies to Yevamot, etc. For sure, there are details. It's what exactly you meant by saying 3 months. Is that, for example, from the passing day, burial day, Shiva's day, Shaloshim day, how do you count, etc. So the second part, we're also going to discuss indirectly Hilchot Avelut, the law of mourners, and also we're going to discuss a little bit the law of purity and ritual impurity. So we are on page 42b, 6th line from the bottom of the page. Mistamech ve'azil Rabbi Abau akatfei de Rabbi Nachum Shama'ei. There is a concept we study in Pirkei Avot, Shimush Talmidei Chachamim, which is when it's come to Torah scholar, we have to be very careful because they are basically the Torah. And one of my teachers, we used to call him walking Sefer Torah. So therefore, we have to be careful. So here's a story about a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Abau, that most probably was either weak or physically ill, etc. So he has an assistant by the name of Rabbi Nachum, who is also a scholar, and he carries him on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. So they said, Mankit ve'azil hilcheta minei. So while he did it, he asked him questions. Why bothered? So there is a book called Aruch Laner. And Aruch Laner explained to us that we don't allow to just ask or take advantage of Talmidei Chachamim, of Torah scholars. And again, we have to be careful. But the Gemara said in Tractate Megillah, page 28b, that even a Torah scholar is only called Shonei Halachot, someone who just read Halachot for us, is a problem. But here he said that since he refused to let him carry, and therefore he said, at least ask me a question. Therefore, he asked him a question which called Letzorech HaLimud, in order for him to understand something better. That's okay. So what's the question? He asked him, Be'amina, machloket v'achakach stam mai. If you have a series of rules, and you have a general disputation, which you know, in Jewish faith, we encourage disputation and arguments. Remind me, George asked me, one of my students, he asked me how come he is working for the court system. So he noticed all these Jewish lawyers, they are fighting like crazy in the court, and then they're sitting and eating lunch together. He never understand that. So I told him that it's part of our culture. Anyway, I'm joking. Anyway, so here you see there's a disputation, and then you have a general stam, and we follow stam, meaning the general without specification, said stam v'achagach machloket mai. So what is the law if an anonymous ruling is followed by a dispute regardless of that ruling? Amar lei ein halacha ki stam, or the Rashbam said not ki stam mishnah, stam adematnitin umachloket bebraita. If you have two different texts and you juxtapose them, in a Mishnah it's a general ruling, and in a Braita there is a disputation. Mai Amar le halacha ki stam. So again, The Rashba in Bava Kama 102 explained that not everyone follow that, and there are those who say that it's not that way, not halacha kestam. Anyway, machloket b'matnitin v'ustama b'braita. If you have a disputation in a Mishnah and then an anonymous ruling in the Braita, Amar lei Rabbi Abahu respond, page 43a, V'chi Rabbi lo shna'a Rabbi Chia menalo.
Just a quick question. I know you mentioned about differing texts. If you had something in the Braita versus something in the Mishnah, if there was a dispute in the Braita, there was a stam in the Mishnah. So, were Braitot ever documented, written down?
Okay, let's understand. Mishnah is the 1st and the 2nd century, also a little bit early, the 3rd century. It was great Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which we believe it's about 40 generations from Moshe Rabbeinu, that put together the Mishnayot, and he is basically the editor or the one who put together the Mishnayot. Then, about 2.5 centuries later, which is the 3rd, the 4th, and early 5th century, that was the time that a wrap-up, which we call the Talmud, which contained a lot of Braitot, which is the subsequent order of the Mishnah, which contained a lot of discussions. It was mainly by Ravina and Rav Ashi that put it together. Now, to understand better, the old era of the Midrashim, the early era of Midrashim, it's the 4th century. So what happened, many of us believe that you have other concept of a sector that follow the Talmud. For example, you have the one that's called Tosefta, and others that they collected Braitot, which not always you see directly in a text. You also juxtapose by the Jerusalem Talmud and Babylonian Talmud, and not always you see a matching Braitot, but in a very general terms, the most of the Braitot you do see in a Talmud. And as far as the putting together, following Talmudic time, it was the era that's called the Geonic era. And it was many great Geonim that live, and they basically followed that order of Ravina and Rav Ashi and tried to select it clearly. And if it was some disputation, they tried to clarify it. So it's basically a big subject. The one who elaborates a lot on that, for example, which I highly recommend it, is Rabbi Beryl Wein. He has a few lectures that try to explain what exactly happened at that time. Anyway, 43a, now if Rabbi Yehuda Nasi himself, he is the one who put together the Mishnah, he does not have this ruling of some unknown Mishnah, so how his student, the student of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, whose name is Rabbi Chia, how Rabbi Chia can have this idea of authority to write it? Because if it was not taught anonymously in the Mishnah, so the fact that it was taught anonymously in a Braita, it have no, is nothing significance in that. By the way, when David and I visited North Israel, on the way to Tzfat and Meron, the graveside which believed to be Rabbi Chia. Anyway, so they said, Amar lei v'hatnan. We learn in the Mishnah, Tractate Kelim, chapter 13. Now, it's important for us again to understand the mindset in the Talmud. When there is a arguments, or when they need to use some support point or source, they use a different one. So in a way, we need to digress and then go back to our subject, which is machloket and stam and machloket. So what's the subject over there? We're dealing there with the law of purity or ritual purity or impurity when it's come to a certain cotton and metal part of flax. Example, masrek shel pishtan. If you have a kam that's used for flax, so they have an iron, a metal teeth, right? Within that, shenitlu shinav v'nishtayru bo shtayim. If you go to Jerusalem Museum, you see samples of old ancient kam that they use. So sometimes there's part that's missing. So the issue here, tmeot, which means, or there are some who say tameh, which means since he is susceptible, become for the ritual impurity of utensils, because he is adain have the title of kli, meaning using as utensil, so therefore he is still susceptible. However, if he's no longer clear those teeth, ve'achat tehora, he is not anymore susceptible to ritual impurity, because you cannot call it as a regular vessel or regular kam or something that you can use as utensil. וכולן שנתלו אחת אחת בפני עצמם, and each one by itself is susceptible to tum'ah, for the individual teeth are regarded as functional utensils. So tmeot. So you see here the Rashi explained to us, because you can use it for other purposes. For example, in those days when you need to clean the candlesticks, so you can use those teeth to clean it. Or, for example, in those days they need to separate a flax or wool pieces from one another, you can use that stick to separate. Shel tzemer, however, if they come used for raw wool, so raw wool, so it's also made out of metal, but it means that it's much, the Meiri said that it's much thicker than if you compare to the other one, the one who's for flax. So he said, שנתלו שיניו מבין התאים, tahor, which is if the middle one between the three missing, it is not susceptible to ritual impurity. נשתיירו בו שלוש במקום אחד, טמא, because it's still befitting. Now, הייתה החיצונה אחת מהן, one from the three that left. So it's the outer one, tahor. Why? Because it's lower, it's larger, it's bigger, and it's not used, and you don't have two together. נתלו שתיים ועשאן למלכת. If two of the teeth were removed and one fashioned them into a tweezers, so therefore tmeot, which is, it's like regular scissor someone used, especially in those days. They have other use. Achat v'hitkina lener. So if one prepare for its use to clean a lamb, or for use lemituach to stretching out clothes, tme'ah, so that it's susceptible to ritual impurity. So it means you see here a disputation that Braita is also, as we said, appear into Sefta to Tractate Kelim, and it's also in the Tractate Bava Metzia, chapter 3. So basically you see a disputation between Tanakama, which we know that it's Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Shimon, if one of the tooth left in that flex. According to Tanakama or Meir, it's not susceptible to ritual impurity, and according to Rabbi Shimon, it is. V'kaimelan de'ein halacha ke'otam mishnah. So according to the Chazon Ish, in his book Tractate נשים 134, is explained that we do not rule according to that Mishnah. We don't follow. Amar lei, so Rabbi Nachum said, bar mina dehahi, you take this Mishnah out of our discussion. Why? The Rabbi Yochanan v'Reish Lakish, those relatives, right? The Amrei Travayu, they both said, zo eina Mishnah. It's not an accurate Mishnah. It happens. We all discussed the other day, if you remember, the era of the Gutenberg printing press, 1484, that people can use a mass production of early industrial revolution. Up to that time, for more than 1,000 years, the transmission of text was by handwriting, or by basically taking a scroll and copy it. So between that and the idea that it was transmitted orally, from time to time you see inaccurate text. So here, both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish say that this is inaccurate, because, and therefore this is not a Mishnah that you can bring re'ayah, can bring proof to that. Maitama, in which area we say that it's inaccurate that both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish agree upon. Amar Rav Huna bar Manuach mishmei de Rav Idi brei de Rav Ika mishum de kashia reisha leseifa. You see a contradiction between the first clause and the last one in that Mishnah. Diktani. Here is the source. Shel tzemer shenitlu shinav mi beinatayim. If you have a kam used for wool, for which every second tooth was removed. So here we have the wool itself. So every time you have the three, the middle one is out, so it's not susceptible to ritual impurity. Hanishtayiru bo shnayim b'makom echad. However, if there are two teeth in one place, which means one next to the other, tameh, it's susceptible to ritual impurity. They attach, because the only problem is when one is not close to the other, so it doesn't use as a normal manner of that utensil. V'hadar tani. However, you see the last clause of that Mishnah, nishtayru bo shalosh tameh. However, if there are three, so it is susceptible to ritual impurity. Now we said shalosh ein, shtayim lo. So you see here a contradiction. Mm-hmm. So they said on my kushia, the rejected that said, what is the issue? Dilma ha, over there when we talk about two that close to each other, that are susceptible to ritual impurity, it speaks about begavaita. Begavaita meaning by the inner part of the kam, that it's only used in order to hold, Rashi said, of that wool that to not disappear. So it's enough to have two in order to hold it. Ha bebaraita. So there are two different type of tooth. Rashi said. Rashi have two pshatim. One is the outer and one is the inner. The first pshat, Rashi said that when you hold it, the closest to your hand, it's the stronger one, especially in the ancient time, because he said yoter koach, it's much stronger, it's chazak, versus so therefore enough to have two. The outer you need to have three. That's the first pshat in Rashi. The second one we said that is a shtei shurot, as two lines, and therefore the manner ikar ha'avoda b'chitzoni, the manner of needed is by the outer tooth, but the inner it's used when tzemer lo tov, when the wool is not so good. So he put it olela masrek. They use it for the. You see it in the modern days when you use kam. There are, especially you ask Raphael, he will tell you that there is a difference between the inner and outer in those professional, right? Professional, what is called hairdresser, mm-hmm. right? So they have those things that they use the inner in different purposes than the outer of those tooth when they need it. Okay, so therefore it's not a contradiction because it's talking about different ones. So ela mehacha. Here is the contradiction. Dekatali, v'chulan shenitlu achat achat bifnei atzman. When you have a situation that each of the tooth was taken independently, which means it's not inside the kam, tmeot, it's susceptible to ritual impurity. Ve'af al gav de lo hitkina, even though it's not using for that purpose. So the Chazon Ish said that you derive from that, Rav Karelitz. He said that general masrek shel tzemer, the wool kam, it's not susceptible to ritual impurity only if they have at least 5. 2 in the inner part and 3 in the outer part. That's famous Chazon Ish. Anyway, so they said, Eima Seifa, Achat v'hitkina lener o lemituach, tmea. So he said, if the one of the teeth was removed from the wool kam, and one prepared for use of cleaning a lamb or for use it stretching out cloth, so he said, if that's the case, tmea, it's susceptible to ritual impurity. So he said, hitkina ein, lo hitkina lo, which means here is a contradiction. So therefore, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan both said that it's not accurate Mishnah. Amar Abaye, Umay Kushya. Abaye said, no, it's not an issue. Why? Dilma ha, the one part which we said earlier, that the teeth are susceptible to ritual impurity without putting it for that purpose of use, bekataihu, that you use it in the handles, which need no further preparation to be recon utensil. Ha belokataihu. So Rashi said, if miyesh beit yad, if you have that handler, so you have a different needs. It's rak nitla bashen, it's only depend upon this. So without this wood part, it's no use. You need to have this handler in order to use it for those purposes. Another rejection, Amar Rav Papa, Umay Kushya, V'dilma ha bekatinata, maybe one speaks about narrow teeth, ha be'alimata, and the other one speak about the wide teeth, which can be grasped without handlers. Ela mishum de mesaime ba davkanim, but because those who are very scrupulous to read every word, they said, you know what? Zod divrei Rabbi Shimon. This is precisely the word of Rabbi Shimon, and that was the conclusion. So therefore, what you see here, when Rabbi Nachum posed this question to Rabbi Abahu, we reconcile it. That the reason that the halacha did not follow the Mishnah, it's because it's actually not a stam, not an anonymous Mishnah. Now we're back to a subject we discussed in the past several days, the 3 months period. Meaning, woman that lost her husband, so the idea is before she engaged to another one, it's a 3 months waiting period. Shalach Rabbi Chia bar Avin me'arsin toch shlosha. As far as engagement, the engagement can take place during the 3rd month, meaning even married, meaning widows, can go ahead and engage. V'chen osim ma'aseh. So, in my book on Rashi, I explain, Rashi said here, Klomar kach ra'iti minhag chachamim osim. So, Rashi here have a question. It looks like a repetition of the word of Rabbi Chanina bar Avin, because he said, me'arsin toch shlosha, you shall engage within the 3 months period. And then he said, v'chen osim ma'aseh, why you need to repeat yourself? So he said, it means that you cannot derive from that a practical halacha. It's the idea that Rabbi Chia bar Avin said, I heard that that's the halacha. That's, I think, the reason why she used the word klomar. And therefore he says, in addition, I can support that by saying I saw sages that they see it. So by having this Ma'aseh Rav, it's like proof to what he heard. But anyway, he said that that's the idea, that the sages does that, meaning according to Rabbi Chia bar Avin, the big chidush that is no need for use of the entire 3 months period before the engagement, versus when it's come to a marriage, he agreed that you have to wait full 3 months period. וכן היה רבי אלעזר מלמדנו משום רבי חנינה הגדול, רובו של ראשון ורובו של שלישי ואמצעי שלם. So there are few interpretations. What does that mean? The idea is Rabbi Chanina Agadol hold that you do not have to wait the entire full 3 months period in order to recognize the baby. Remember, this is before ultrasound, etc. So according to Maharsha, Tractate Nida, page 8b, so it's enough to have 1 month, full month, and most of the other 2 months. But the idea of using the term V'chen haya Rabbi Elazar melamdenu, it means Rabbi Chanina Hagadol allows only the engagement, but as far as the marriage, he agreed that you have to wait the full 3 months period. The big question here, why he differentiate between engagement and marriage. So the Gemarrah explained that some women, you do not recognize that they pregnant only when they passed 3 months. So therefore, the leniency the rabbis have only when it's come to engagement and not to marriage. The Bach said on Even HaEzer, Kuf Samech Gimel 163, he said that the concept of 3 months can be 2 full months, and then when it's come to the second month, you have to wait again full, but then you have to go even by 1 day. That it's one school of thought. Others say that you have to go by the month counting the moon. There are those who say that this is basically if you want to see more, there is a commentary called Mizrahi, which is a commentary on Rashi. It's a early sage on Bereshit, book of Bereshit, page 38, the famous story of merely looks like the story of Yehuda, etc. So you have there on 38, verse 24, the Mizrahi elaborate on that concept of the 3 months. Anyway, usually the idea here it's gzeira, it's the decree, and usually again and again, the way that we understand the Bach, it's 62 days. המימר שרה להיארס בתוך 90. המימר allow to engage within the period of 90 days, which is, it means that before the 3 months were complete. So here we back to the idea of the 3 months. Usually when you're counting month, you're meant to say 30 days, which means 30 times 3, 90, which means the day of the 90 is part of the 3 months. Now, a Meimar hold that to recognize average baby, you need to have completion of 3 months, and therefore he does not allow the engagement within the 3 months period, only by the 90 days itself, and even that the 90 days itself, it's part of that period, he allow, because there is something we learn in Tractate Psachim, page 4, Miktzat Hayom Kekulo, part of the day is considering as a full day, so it means that she is like completed that day. So that's only applies to engagement, because it's we have Gzeira Mishum Nesuim, we have the decree that engagement applies also to a normal act of marriage, but when it's come to marriage, since the whole matter of concern it's maybe she's pregnant, we do not allow to go even for the 90 days, and we have to go for the full period of time. Amar le Rav Ashi la Meimar v'harav Rav u'Shmuel d'Amrei travayu. If a woman lost her husband, צריכה להמתין 3 חודשים before she engaged. She needs to wait 3 months period. חוץ מיום שמת בו, that excluding the day of the passing of the husband, וחוץ מיום שנתארסה בו, and excluding the day that she is engaged. So that if you go by that direction, why are you allowed to go by the 90 days? So he said, "Hahu le'inyan meineket itmar." Over there we talk about nursing women. The Rav u'Shmuel d'Amrei travayu, both of them agreed that when it's come to a nursing woman, צריכה להמתין 24 חודש. She must wait 24 months before entering the engagement, and חוץ מיום שנולד בו, excluding the day that the baby, her child, was born, וחוץ מיום שנתארסה בו, and excluding the day that she was engaged. So the Gemara in Ketubot, page 60, explained that that's basically the period that average baby nurse. V'ha hu de avad is a story about the fellow, no name. סעודת אירוסין ביום 90, he made a big feast over engagement within the 90 days, ואפסדי רבה לסעודתי, and Rava delayed the wedding and caused him to lose his feast. So you see here from these Rava actions that the widow requires a waiting period of 90 full days. So it said, "Hahi seudat nisuim avai." You do not know the story correctly. It applies to a feast of marriage, not engagement. Vehilcheta, and now the final halacha. צריכה להמתין 24 חודש. Before engagement, she needs to wait 24 months. חוץ מיום שנולד בו, וחוץ מיום שנתארסה בו, excluding the day that her child was born, and the day that she was engaged. So there is a different view among the rabbis when it's come to these 24 months of the nursing mother. There are those who say that that's applied to the entire 30 days period, and therefore she needs to wait a little more than 2 years. That's the Mordechai said earlier on page 36, and also in Shiltei Giborim we said it. There are others who say that you go by the lunar, meaning by the counting of the Levana, which is those days, or basically 29 days, and some of them are 30, and that's Tumat Hadeshen, famous one in 2:16. But there are those who dispute all of that and say that you have to go by the Chodshei Chama, by those months, that sun months, which means that you apply to a nurse a nursing mother. She needs to wait 2 years period. Each of those years has to be completion of 365 days, because that's the way you're counting the year of the sun. And you see more on Beit Yosef and Even HaEzer 13. So there is in a way, indirect source. The Torah said, "You shall not cook a kid with its mother's milk," in the book of Exodus chapter 23. So there are those who say that this is a nice way that imply indirectly to this meaning, that you are prohibited to marry a woman that she is a nurse, a baby at that time. That's the famous Dad Zkenim on Shmot, Exodus chapter 34, verse 26. He goes, there are those who go by the gematria, by the numerical value. The word Tevashel, Taf Bet Shin Lamed, is a numerical value of 732. And if you're counting the days, that's the 732 days that the nursing mother needs to wait, which is 2 years that contain each of them 365 days, and the day of the birth and the day of the engagement. That's the Meiri. Anyway, so he said, צריכה להמתין 24 חודש, חוץ מיום שנולד וחוץ מיום שנתארסה. And the one who's not mother nursing, he said, צריכה להמתין 3 חודשים before the engagement, חוץ מיום שמת בו, excluding the day that passing of the husband, וחוץ מיום שנתארסה בו, excluding the day that she entered the engagement. They are not discussing the waiting period of others. So here, in general, the Gemara speaks about widow, but the Ritva add to that, and he said that that's apply also to divorced woman, that she have to wait a full 3 months period before she engage. As we said in page 42, there is a disputation among the rabbis if that's applied from the day that the bill of divorce, the get, was written, or by the day that was given. But again, the Bach said that that's lechatchila b'di'avad, if they wait the most of the first and the second, the first and the third, and the middle one was full, it's good b'di'avad, after the fact. So the Mishnah said, Rabbi Yossi tells us, all the women engage chutz min almana because of the ibul, because she is obligated to wait a time, 30 days of mourning period. So Rashi said that it's a 30 days. So they said, Amarav Chizda Kal Vachomer. Why Rabbi Yossi prohibited that? Against Rabbi Yossi. He said, Uma b'makom she'asur lechabes mutar le'ares, makom she'mutar lechabes enodin she'yeh mutar le'ares, if you tell me that the place that you cannot do laundry because you are mourning, which is the week of Tisha B'Av, that we are not allowed to do a laundry, but you're allowed to do engagement. The place that you are allowed to do laundry, how much so you're allowed to engage? So how come Rabbi Yossi prohibited to have engagement within the 30 days period? He says, what's the source? Ditnan. We learn it in the Mishnah, Tractate Yevamot, page 26b. Shabbat shechal Tisha B'Av betocha, the week that we have the morning period of the 9 of Av, asur lesaper ulechabes, we are prohibited to have a haircut and to do laundry. Vachamishi, when Tisha B'Av occurred on Erev Shabbat on Friday, so on Thursday, mutar mipnei kvod Shabbat, in order to have a clean dress for Shabbat, you're allowed to do it. That applies those days that they did kiddush al pi ha're'iyah. They did it by the Bet Din sent an emissary and they recognize the time. The Tanya kodem hazman hazeh, before that time, which is the week that Tisha B'Av ha'am ma'atim b'izkehem, people reduce their businesses, milisa veliten, which is the normal manner of commerce, that buying and selling, umilivnot velintnua, from planting, etc., ume'arsim, and they also engage because it's not considering a celebration, so it's also considering as mitzvah. Avalo konsin ve'ein osin seudat erusin, but do not perform a total marriage, and during this period they do not make a celebratory engagement feast. So this Braita teaches that it is permissible to enter engagement during the week of Tisha B'Av, and that's basically opposed the view of Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara responded and said, Kitana hahi, Kitanya hi. That's apply when we speak about this Braita. It's before the time that the engagement kodem de kodem, which is the week before the week that occurred the Tisha B'Av. Those days you're allowed to do laundry, and therefore you're allowed to do engagement. But the week itself, by the way, even the Sfaradim, who are more lenient, when it's come to week itself of Tisha B'Av, they do the same as Ashkenazim, that they don't do that. The prohibition against laundry, the same rabbinic prohibition applies to engagement. So it's no kal vachomer. Amar Rava v'kodem de kodem nami kal vachomer. So Rava said that even if you go by the week before the week of Tisha B'Av, it's still kal vachomer. Why? Ma b'makom she'asur lisa veliten mutar le'ares. If you talk about the morning period, the period that precedes the week of Tisha B'Av, you're allowed to do engagement. Mutar, makom shemutar lisa veliten, and odin shemutar le'ares, the place that you're allowed to do, the time that you're allowed to do a commerce manner, which is the buying and selling the product, engage in that time, which is the 30-day period, morning period, how much so it's permissible to do engagement. Then does Rabbi Yossi prohibit a woman to enter engagement during her 30-day morning period? So they said, Lo Teima de Rabbi Yossi Omer Kol Hanashim Yit'arsu. So do not say that Rabbi Yossi said that all what we said earlier, that the married woman may enter into the time of engagement. Ela Eima, that he said Kol Hanashim Yinasu, which means all the previously married women may enter into marriage at once. So you see here, that's excluding the widow, which means when Rabbi Yossi excluded the widow from that rules, he did not took it out only from the allowance of marriage, but as far as the engagement, it's okay. So now you see a total new understanding of the word of Rabbi Yossi. Up to this point, we have no disputation between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi in regards to understanding the distinguish, because they said engagement can get married, And the married, you can engage right away. Only the time that they have disputation is regards to mourning period. According to Rabbi Yehuda, even a widow allowed to engage within the 30 days. According to Rabbi Yossi, she is prohibited because she is mourning over the loss of her husband. But now when we come back to understand better Rabbi Yossi, so there we understand that those women who married women can marry immediately, because he disputed Rabbi Yehuda in that sense, and he said that you don't need to wait 3 months period. However, when it's come to a mourning, so there's no disputation, because according to everyone, it's 30 days. So what you see here are 3 different points. Point number 1, according to the Tanakama, the first view, he prohibited not only those who engage to marry and those who married to engage, but even to those who engage to engage, which means according to his view, those engaged we derive from those who married and vice versa. Rabbi Yehuda allowed, and he is not concerned about one affect the others, and therefore the only one he prohibited is those who married, meaning as we talked earlier, but the idea of those who are pregnant. So you have this rabbinic notion that they obligate to distinguish between the offspring of the first husband and the second husband. According to Rabbi Yossi, that there is no rabbinic obligation to distinguish between the offspring of the 2 husbands, and consequently he even permits those who are married with nisuin to enter nisuin immediately. So as you see soon in the second part is a 2 different avenue of understand Rabbi Yossi, and we basically follow the first one. 43b, ולית לרב יוסי להבחין. So Rabbi Yossi did not distinguish between the offspring of the first husband and the second husband. So the Gemara said lately he disagreed with that, and therefore he hold that you don't have this type of obligation. Another view, ואם הסייפה לעולם איתלי, ואם הרבי יוסי אומר כל ארוסות גרושות יינשאו. He said that all the women divorced after the engagement may enter into nisuim at once. So when he speaks about all women, he means all who are living engagement. Those living engagement, however, may not enter marriage until after the 3 months, so that it will be possible to distinguish between the offspring of the first marriage and that of the second. So what's the disputation? רבי יהודה סבר נשואה מותרת להיארס, רבי יוסי סבר נשואה אסורה להיארס, because Rabbi Yossi hold that one married with nisuim, she cannot enter the erusin because maybe she's pregnant, and then she will go ahead, if you allow her, and she go ahead and she also married. וסבר רבי יוסי נשואה אסורה להיארס, והתניא רבי יוסי אומר כל הנשים יתארסו חוץ מן האלמנה מפני העיבול, as we said earlier. וכמה העיבול שלה, how long she need to mourn over the husband? 30 יום, 30 days. I think I told you almost 18 years ago I officiated a funeral in New Jersey. It was a big cemetery close to Linden, New Jersey. So it was a very awkward couple in my shul at that time. So we get to the cemetery, and she was crying a lot. Mm-hmm. So when we left the cemetery, I innocently asked her, I was new in the country. I said to her, I knew that you never get along with him and you have so many problems. Why are you crying so much? And she looked at me, I couldn't believe it. She says, why he didn't die earlier? Why it take him so long to die? Vechulan, and all of them, only in America, Gilbert. No, I'm joking. Vechulam, all those who married, right, which is those divorced and those widows, לא ינסו עד שיהיו להם 3 חודשים, meaning to wait 3 months period to differentiate between the first one and the second one. היי מאי קושייה, אילמה דקתני, רבי יוסי אומר כל הנשים יתארסו ממתניתים So it means that this Braita is stronger than the Mishnah. The Ukim Nabahu Sod Grushot Yinasu. So they said, Hachaname Kol Arusot Grushot Yinasu Ela Miseifa de Katane V'chulam lo Yinasu ad shiu lahem 3 chodashim. So they said, in Suvei de lo Ha'itrusei Shapir Dami. We differentiate between engagement and marriage. המרא והתריץ ואימך, רבי יוסי אומר כל ארוסות גרושות ינסעו חוץ מן האלמנה מפני העיבול. As we said, she have the period of mourning, right? וכמה העיבול שלה 30 יום. She needs to wait 30 days. ונשואות לא יתארסו עד שיהיה להם 3 חודשים. So those who are married with נישואים may not enter into engagement until they have seen 3 months pass following the previous marriage. So you see here that you have the final decision in the Braita that living Nisuim may enter the engagement at once. However, you see here clearly that they not. So it means that the Braita basically match the statement of Rabbi Yossi forbids those living Nisuim to enter Erusin. So Gemarrah asks, so you're going to tell me that she is engaged with someone and then he passed, so she needs to mourn? והתנא רבי חייא בר עמי אשתו ארוסה לא אונן ולא מטמא לה. So Rashi said, כלומר אינם מצווה להתעסק בו. So the Rashi have an issue. You see the story of the daughter of Aharon. They did not warn over ritual impurity. So why she is prohibited? So that's what we study in 29b. So Rashi here will explain, since she's not his wife, she doesn't have that obligation, and can apply also what we study in Rosh Hashanah, page 16. Tosfot also mentioned that over there, that's Velomi Tama, it's that applies to everyone, not just the Kohanim. Anyway, so here you see here that if he's a Kohen, so he cannot contact the corpse. So this is something we learn from the Torah, the said in Leviticus 21, that Kohen in general cannot be in contact with the dead. The only one that we accepted is the 7 immediate family, father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister, or married wife. So married wife, according to the Rambam, Ilchot Avelut, chapter 2, that's she'ero. But if she's only engaged to him, that's a different story, right? It's not. V'chen he also, when she just engaged to him, lo onenet, she doesn't have those prohibition of eating the consecrated food. Velo mitam'a lo, she doesn't have the mitzvah to occupy herself with burial. Meta eino yorsha, if she passed, he cannot claim for inheritance by any means, unlike normal relationship, married relationship, as far as the inheritance, because the Torah said in Book of Numbers, chapter 27, that the closest kin to the deceased inherited. And the Gemara in Tractate Bava Batra, page 111b, they said that that's applied to the right of the husband to inherit the property of his wife. However, when it's come to engagement, that's not part of that category. So they said, Meta eno yorsha methu govak tubata. However, if he passed away and it's a ketubah, it's the marriage agreement that the husband give his wife at the time of the marriage, so he commit himself for a certain amount of money that he compensate her if they get divorced or if he pass. So therefore the issue here is sometimes the husband have the option to do that even earlier, which is at the time of engagement. So the Braita here said that it's go the other way around, which means we take care of her, that even they're only engaged and he gave her ketubah and it was nothing between them and he passed away, she can collect money from his property even he passed away before they physically got married. That's the way we understand according to Gemarrah Ketubot, page 89b. So they said, how come Rabbi Yossi said that those widows that engage cannot get married because they have a period of mourning? So we go back and we understand what originally said, that Rabbi Yossi hold that those who married can engage immediately, excluding the widow because of the 30 days. Ela tanaihi, the Tanya, merosh chodesh ve'ad ha'tanit. As we said earlier, from Rosh Chodesh Av until the fast of Tisha B'Av, ha'am mema'atim mi'iskehem. People reduce their commerce, they reduce businesses. Milisa u'militen, milivnot ve'lintoa, miliares ve'lisa, from business, from planting, from engagement, etc. Shabbat shechal Tisha B'Av betocha, the week that Tisha B'Av occurred, אסור לספר ולכבס, ואסור להרס. You cannot have laundry and you cannot do a haircut, etc. ויש אומרים כל החודש. There are those who go stringent and say that that's applied in entire months. For sure we don't do that in a sense, in a regular manner, especially with engagement. But anyway, we're not yet in practical halachot in that. מתקיף לה רב אשי, ממאי דלערס li'ares mamash. When you talk about engagement, you mean to say literally to enter engagement. Dilma leme'avad se'udateu sinu deusur. They make a big feast for the engagement. That is prohibited. Ha le'ares shafir dami. So according to the Tosfot, tells us in the previous part, in the 43, so this basically Braita disputed the previous one, because as far as the feast for engagement, that's prohibited, but the engagement itself, it's not the issue. And it means that everyone agreed that you're allowed to engage the week preceding the week of Tisha B'Av itself. Ihachei melisa. So what is the meaning by the Braita? They use the word for marriage. So they said, Linaseh name li'avad sudat nisuinu deosu halisa shafir dame, which means that marriage itself allowed, and we say that you can say it. So it means that marriage itself, everyone agreed that you don't do. Marsha said, you said clearly, avalo konsin. So therefore, the erusin itself, you can say it is an issue, but the seuda, it's not. So it means that this Braita prohibited to involve with engagement by the days that preceded the week of Tisha B'Av. And obviously, that the way we understand, perhaps Rabbi Yossi hold the same as this Braita, Hache Ashta. The Gemara said you cannot compare the two, which mean between engagement and marriage. Bishlama nisu'im belo seuda ika simcha. When it's come to a wedding, even you don't have a meal, it's still considering a simcha, a time of celebration. Ela erusin belo seuda meika simcha. But just engagement without meal, it's not. You have to talk to people that come to shul only for kiddush, right? So there are those people, if you announce, I saw in the shul, I forward to you the email. Did you see the email? They sent in that shul in Long Island 6 weeks in advance, all the list of kiddushin. And I like the 2 comments on the bottom of the email. Did you notice that comment? Comment number 1, they said all these lists and the involvement with the food. Like this week it's a Middle Eastern, and next week is Asian, and next week, so people hear that, smell that, it's like the fly, they smell the food. But the second part, they said, remember us, we're getting close to the end of the year, and this is the best place to give some tax deductible and get away from Uncle Sam. I like it, we should do it. Anyway, Ela Amar Rav Ashi, Shane Avelut Chadasha Me Avelut Yeshana. We have to differentiate between the 30 days period of mourning over something that just happened, versus Tisha B'Av that it's considering an old one, ancient one that we still practice. Veshane avelut derabim me'avelut diyachid. Tisha B'Av is a public mourning period, versus individual 30 days that's specific for him. So therefore you cannot compare a leniency of Tisha B'Av to the stringency of 30 days period, and therefore it's a two different things. So the Meiri explains that when you have many people who mourn, it's like almost half of consultation. It's comforting when many people mourn together. Not everyone agreed, but that's the general statement, is that when everybody is there for each other, it's a different feeling.
ויחם לשולוים מלאכי השולוים מלאכי